Darren Lee and his team have helped 500 plus coaches and agencies generate over $40 million in client revenue through content. He's known for turning content into a direct revenue stream through positioning, distribution, and ad creatives. As the founder of OX, he focuses on getting attention and then monetizing that attention. Today's conversation will cover how to create content that gets outcomes, what separates high-performing creators, and how to think about distribution and leverage in today's creator economy. Darren Lee, welcome to the show.
Let's go. I'm excited for it, dude. I appreciate your all your advice and your help, man, over the years. I really appreciate you following our show and following myself. And we've had a lot of interactions, so I'm very grateful for your, the time you've put into watching all our stuff, and also I'm excited for today.
100%. And for context for the viewers, how Darren and I got connected was we run theme pages. I tagged his content, and then conversations happened, and it was so far phenomenal conversation, and I expect today's to be as well. So Darren, just to get started off, is what are you optimizing for right now, and how are you positioning yourself to actually get there?
I think what we're optimizing for is trying to become a category king, because in this online business space, I find that the biggest challenge a lot of entrepreneurs have and a lot of founders have is the sales process. So the biggest edge that I have over the years is I've taken 1,000 sales calls, I've trained hundreds of sales reps, I've placed hundreds of sales reps. And I think in this online business space, that small bridge at the end called the sales process is where most founders trip up. So where we've really doubled down on with Voix is helping founders scale their sales, helping founders understand sales, because we help people get clients, we help people get leads, we help people build their offer. But a lot of that stuff is quite transient. As you know, since you're on team pages, content changes like the flick of a dime. And all of a sudden, it's outdated and something else new is coming in. But the sales process is something that's a universal problem. And to me, it's something that when it's solved, it can actually be solved. And I have thousands and thousands of examples of this, whether it's my own team, whether it's our clients, whether it is anyone else in the industry that we're working with. And I find it to be very, very interesting. So that's where, for me, this new phase of online business is how the hell do we get people to convert clients faster than ever? Because you know this running an agency, man, working at an agency. A lot of the stuff that you're told online is a total waste of time. I'm being very, very clear. So whether you're running short form strategy or a long form strategy or a LinkedIn strategy or a TikTok strategy, I've really, really found, from working with 600 coaches, that a lot of that stuff is kind of like moving around in circles. And if I was to give people one piece of advice, it's run your offer, learn sales, get leads in the door. That's it. That's definitely it. And that's how we're basically manufacturing what we're optimizing for. Obviously, I built a software company that's also around this as well recently. And I pieced this together because I'm telling you very clearly, if you get this right, you don't need more leads. You don't need to waste your time creating more content. And I think that was a big thing for me going into 2026 that I thought to myself, look, 80-20. If I look back at our best clients, what did we do? We helped them with sales. If I look back at our best even followers, man, that came in, they learned these things from us. And I do believe that we do have an edge in the market, which is what we're trying to double down on this year.
100%. And thank you for sharing that. So when it comes to sales, I used to be in sales myself, cold caller, SDR manager, and all that fun stuff, placed about 40, 45 reps. So when it comes to sales, there are a lot of sub skills in sales. Mm-hmm. So what would you say is your strongest, and how has that helped shape your results?
It's understanding that all humans are inherently the same. The human brain works like everyone else. Greed, jealousy, desire, scarcity, urgency. So you don't learn sales, you learn psychology. And once you understand how people work, once you understand what makes people tick, you can then customize and personalize their solution. So a big thing that I talk about is all about solving pain. finding that pain point, solving that pain in there. It takes reps to be able to identify someone's actual true pain. And it takes reps understand how does that truly manifest in their life. And it takes years to understand how do you solve that painful problem for a specific person at a specific time. And I think there's obviously different like selling styles, different patterns, different behaviors, of course. And there's, it's B2C, B2B, all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's humans that we're working with. So I went on this massive journey a couple of years ago to really understand this because honestly, like if I was to take a step back, what did I really, really struggle with? Like I struggled with this stuff. You mentioned cold calling. I was doing cold DMing. I was dialing when I lived in Singapore from like a tiny little room, and I didn't even have furniture in my house, dude. And I used to be petrified of this, which sent me on this many year path to understand this craft, to really, really understand this craft. And then after understanding this craft, we were able to implement it into our own business. And then when I started working with some of the people who are getting started, or let's say they're trying to grow their coaching business, I thought to myself, whoa, okay, look, yes, we can help them get a ton of more leads. But if they don't
Mhm.
understand the fundamental behavior of psychology, how users buy, why they don't buy, then we're all going to be in a very tough position at the end of the day if we can't solve that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. For me, I'm tend to be an overthinker, and when it comes to
Yeah.
sales, you can easily overthink, oh
Mm,
my gosh, I did this sales tactic on this prospect, they piffed, and I will be translating that sales ninja move
mm,
across the entire company, and that tends not to work. So when it comes to sales, we briefly touched around marketing.
mm,
Marketing is getting people in the door, sales is converting the people, next is fulfillment.
mm.
So let's say you just signed and onboarded a client today, one for your agency. So when you analyze your new client's content, what's the first thing you tend to look at or the thing you try to understand about them?
Take a step back. I'm I'm not a content creator. I'm a business owner who uses content to grow their business. All right, there's a big distinction here. Is like I'm not looking to go famous. Many people that listen to this probably have not heard of me beforehand. They may have seen some sort of piece of content. What I'm more interested in is how do we use the right style content to attract the right buyer? And for many people that
Mhm.
we work with, whether it's in our agency or in our consulting business, it's all actually under our consulting business now going forward because we just have one consulting firm. That it's very, very clear to me that the reason why they're not growing their business is because they're not getting the lead flow from content. So my first step, and for anyone to listen to this, is to take a step back, look right now as to what you're doing in your content. Is that aligned to your offer? So let's just say you have a fitness offer, you're helping people lose belly fat. Well, is that content relating to it, or is the content showcasing you at a beach bar, or is it showcasing you doing something completely random, climbing a mountain? That doesn't really solve the problem of why someone should buy from you or what they should buy from you. If that makes sense. Okay.
Mhm.
I tried to understand this initially, just conceptually. Then I go in and I would look specifically at how many leads they're getting, what's the content they're trying to create, and where do they want to get to. Because look, if you're making 5K a month and you want to get to 10K, well, you're 50% there. But if you're at 5K a month and you want to get to 100K a month, look, you're going to need a different content strategy and you're going to have a different way to do this. So that's step one. Step two then is what's the content that we create? So the thing that I guess we got more popular for was creating a origin story video. So in 2023, 2024, I basically came out with this concept of people don't buy the product, people buy the story. And that was popularized by people like Steve Jobs and Apple. And I had looked at all these absolute goats over the years. So the famous story is Steve Jobs gets up on stage and he says 1,000 songs in your pocket. He doesn't say, 4 gigabytes of RAM or whatever the thing is. And I thought to myself, well, that's quite interesting. What if we could help people create content that showcase their story, showcase how they got into business, showcase their values, their mission, their vision? And most importantly, how do we do this for people who buy the business owner, not the product? Let me give you an example. If you sell a personal development coaching offer, People don't buy coaching, they buy coaches. So as a result of that, you better be comfortable sharing your story. You better be comfortable putting out all your pros, your cons, and building out those assets. So step one is building out your origin story. Step two is building out tactical content. So this is tactical content that showcases how you get the result for people. Why is that important? If you look back at all the fitness influencers, maybe a little bit before you, right, or even your favorite fitness influencer right now, you often like them, you often love them, but you might not ever buy from them. And the reason being is because they're really damn good at telling their story, but they're really, really bad at trying to show you how good they are at what they do. Because it's all lifestyle, no tactics. So what I help people with, or what I focus on, and what you should do from this is, how do you create a free training and a series of free trainings that showcase how you implement your offer? So my like famous video around this is our 3 hour free course. So again, I eat my own dog food. I created a 3 hour free course to showcase exactly like how to scale a coaching business or how to scale an agency. And that video has like 7,000 views on YouTube, and it's probably made about $1 to $1.5 million with 7,000 views. We use it in our sales calls. We use it as a lead magnet. We use it just as a discovery. We use it in our ads. And the amount of money that that's generated is absolutely wild. And the funny thing is, anyone can do this. Like, that's the thing, is like anyone can do this. You don't need to be famous to do this. You just need to do it. And this is how I think when it comes to content, we really I try to separate myself by just saying that, look, we can all do the same shit, but if we do the stuff that solves the lead flow problem when it comes to content, we are just going to make more money. End of.
Yeah, that's great. And just to kind of put a pin on tactics and content, for instance, for me, every great video needs to die, which stands for disrupt, inject, execute. This is more of a beginner model for people who are just getting started into creating
Mm,
content, etc. And then there's kind of a second part of it. Die, same thing, but disrupt. What current belief is disrupted from the prospect
mm,
or the viewer? Second, inject. What's the new belief instilled into them? And then execute. What do they think and will do? And what do they think is the best next step going forward, i.e., like booking a call, etc. So when it
mm,
comes to you focusing on the conversion side, what piece of your story that you feel that prospects like
mm,
tend to share that they say like, I love Darren for this reason?
mm. That's such a good question, man. I think honestly, man, it's part of like the origin piece, right? I think this is where, if you look at, I don't want to name names, but if you look at guys who alienate themselves with brands. So anyone, just think about someone now who has a personal brand that you follow, maybe like a couple of 100,000 followers, and they've almost detached themselves from reality. The challenge with that is it creates an aspirational identity, but it doesn't create relatability. And with your content, it's good to be rough around the edges because it gives people the opportunity to cling on to something. Because often what's happening with content in general is that people are trying to make themselves too polished. Whereas I always share that, I started with a $60 microphone and a money back guarantee from Amazon. I was dialing cold leads from the cold floor of Singapore. Like, I've done it. I've been there. So if someone is a struggling coach, or they want to be an entrepreneur, or they want to build a business owner, become a business owner, you can just look at my story and just be like, this dude has done it. He's done it, he's been there, and it's relatability, it's relevance, it's more almost like a sounding board almost as well. And they're like, okay,
Yeah.
this guy is relevant. And that's why people don't buy coaching, they buy coaches. So, what does that mean? Look, does everything you do have to be a sob story? No. But can you intertwine this? Yes. So, let me just give you an example. If I tell you, here's exactly how to sign your next 5 coaching clients from someone who started with absolutely zero on a cold floor in Singapore, you're like, okay, all right, relevancy, that makes sense. I get this. Or the other side of your story. And again, it's important when you're telling your story, You have to tell the story in the context of your offer. So I could tell another story, which is I had 3 failed businesses before the age of 23 before I started a content business. And content was the answer for me growing my business because I use my personal brand to get leads. So that's very helpful for when I'm trying to explain to like a technical founder of a software company why they should start a personal brand. And I think about this stuff a lot because you think about it, if you take a step back, no one really gives a shit about how to get to the result as long as they can get to the result. And you have to show them the result by sharing what is it you do differently than everybody else. And that's why your story is important. So if you can go back and make it as super relevant as possible from when you just started, that will make you a category king effectively.
Yeah, that's great. And it's definitely the people know, like, trust you, and the most important part, respect you. So when it comes to, yeah,
Yeah,
one of
that's a
my
good point.
favorite one of my favorite word tracks you say when you're talking to clients. So when it comes to just trends, I know you briefly mentioned a few, like the new trend of having that raw content.
Mm,
Another thing, if you've been noticing, I'm guessing you know this already, is live streaming. Alex
mm,
Ramosey's on it, and a lot of other people are just starting to do it so they can give their more raw, not necessarily polished self, they just speak. So for you, when you create your content, for
mm,
me, there's kind of two parts to it. You can either script a video or your frameworks. I can do a mix of both since I can easily talk when I
mm,
want to.
mm.
So when you're creating content, and I'm for the viewers listening, Darren and I briefly spoke before we hit the record button of having in-person presentations. So when
Yeah.
it comes to your presentations, do you tend to use a script framework or like what's that thought process looking like for you when you're creating a presentation?
Honestly, man, I could actually give you some contrarian views on this. So I've been producing content for a long time, and we were like hitting the volume game, like volume, volume, volume. But honestly, like the volume didn't yield better results. So we were still getting the same, probably the same lead flow, the same engagement, the same growing, the same growth generally.
Mhm.
And some of them are raw and so on. So just speaking about the raw content first. Then I had a conversation with someone, and the way the conversation went was if you get 100 leads creating the same slop you're doing right now, well, if you say the same, but it's scripted better, it has more of a story and a narrative, you will get to 100 leads plus maybe 20 more. And if you produce content and you use your iPhone and you get 100 leads, or you use a Sony camera and it looks a little bit better, you'll get 100 leads like you did, plus maybe 50 more. And now, by having a better script and a better story arc, you and a better visual, like visualization, you now have the 100 plus the extra 70. And why is that important? That's important because you're building a brand built on like integrity, quality, like high level of perception. Okay. That shows your authority, shows your person of influence, XYZ. But you can equally then run live streams. We run webinars. Okay. We run monthly webinars.
Mhm.
And the webinars for us then are raw. Like I'll run a webinar and I'll forget half my slides. You know what I mean? And it's like that is the rawness in between. Then that's where we showcase our values, our interests, all this kind of stuff. I also run masterminds. I've run four or five, I don't even know anymore, 4 masterminds in person in the past year. And these are like not small. They're 50-person masterminds that are like high ticket. And there's enough of me on stages. I speak a lot on stage. I run events. I'm in person. There's a lot of me in person to show that I am who I am. You know what I mean? The way that I talk is the way that I talk, the way that I show up. Whether you like it or you don't like it, you're going to see it. But then when it comes to my content, then on its own, is that we do want to have more of a, not necessarily polished, but more of like a refined message. So that you're
Mhm.
like, okay, this makes sense. This guy can speak clearly and he can convey his idea.
Yeah, that's great. And to add on, when it comes to kind of like just to recap what you're saying, is if you want to do scripts, just double down on it. It just goes back to like what are you optimizing for in the first place, and you don't want to like have this framework and apply it to this, and then it just leads to a mess.
And
Is
can I
that
add to that as
basically
well?
what
Can
you're
I
saying?
add to that as well?
Yeah.
So I hired like a new copywriter like across our business, and the guy's an absolute G. Like he's a
Mhm.
legend. And
A player.
we were going back and forth on like should it be hyper scripted or should it be like this freestyle approach like I did for many years? And the way that we settled on this after lots of testing was it should be key points. So if I'm discussing, let's say, I'm discussing like how to optimize your show rate, as boring as that sounds. Well, there's probably like two or three key points, which is like showcasing the opportunity, showcasing how much money you're missing, showcase X, Y, Z. And I like the whole idea of key point frameworks or scripting
Mhm.
because it allows you to dive
Well,
into your zone of genius, but simultaneously then also hit the same message.
yeah, that's good. So when it comes to scripting, of course, I mainly specialize more in short form content. So you think
Mm.
reposts, motivational content, etc. So scripting for me is not my forte. So when it comes to just standing out in general, when you create your argument, your narrative of like why should we choose you? I know we covered your story. That's a great selling point in how you can work at talking about the outcomes. So when it comes to some other things outside of story and like your actual experience, what are a few other things that you tend to say in
Mhm.
those presentations that like resonate with the audience?
You need to understand what's your unfair advantage and who are you throwing stones at. Right. I don't want to name names, but there's many people in this space that have built in a business based on a narrative that they create that basically creates an opinion. So you don't
Mhm.
need to be controversial, but what you can do is you can just outline what is it you stand for. This is the most important thing. So for us, we're content businesses. So we're helping people build their business through content. We are also for sales calls. So we teach people sales calls and we teach people how to take sales calls. Very, very important thing. And I'm very bullish on that, which is why I have a software company around sales calls, which is why I'm creating content right now with you. I like to create that flywheel effect. And I believe it. So in my content, I can be against people who are the antithesis of that. The guys who sell via Google Doc, the guys who are like 100% on paid ads, even though paid
Mhm.
ads do have their value, but it's just contextual, right? And I think that's important. Now, if you're a health coach and you are a carnivore health coach, you would throw stones at vegans, right? Obviously, the extreme example here is when people take this too far, but I'm saying holistically, what is that enemy in in your industry? And why is that important is because it's going to pull people closer to you who align with you.
Mhm.
I had a call yesterday for my software company, and the guy on the call was making like 4 million a year. And he said to me, and he said to me, he goes, do I even need sales calls? And I was like, of course you do. And then he looked at me and he was like, yeah, you're so right. He was like, I hate all those guys that don't, that say like you don't. And then I was like, yeah, man, like same. And then we like bonded on that because we both have like sales teams and so on. So he was kind of like he was in between two minds. This is interesting. So people don't know what they want. And I could
Mhm.
see him in real life being like, yeah, that is what I want. I'm in this boat. And then that's how we like resonated really well. And I think it's an interesting observation to understand like the laws of dynamics. Like these are like proper like dynamic laws or like social, back to psychology, right? These are psychological principles of binding in cult behavior, unity, community, and people want to be around people that they actually like and trust. and respect, as you said.
100%. And yeah, and just to add on to your point, there's two parts. I know you covered constraints, and then additionally the everlasting argument of should you use a sales team or should you not. So if you're familiar with, if you're of course, if you're familiar with Dan Henry, so I was, for context, everyone, I was doing research on Darren, and I saw him in the comment section with a video about $100 prospect, and then like a
Mm.
500 or $1,000 prospect a couple days ago. And then he just tagged Dan Henry, who is pretty known for not having a sales team, because it just not goes to, it's not even the question of what you're optimizing for. It's one step above that, is like the core human factors all goes back to psychology. Like, are you impact driven, fulfillment, legacy, etc.? And then
Mm.
that is also personal. It's like, for instance, a client, his impact could just be views, like
Mm.
those factors that people don't generally think are good once they're in the high level marketing space. So when it comes to constraints at your level, I know there's kind of two parts and it just depends on the person.
Mm.
Is it for you when it comes to growing your business? Is it, are you still in the process of identifying constraints or just executing on the ones you already know?
That's a really good question, man. I think, look, things pop up in different ways that you can manifest than you could possibly manifest, right? So you might think that you're going to have this issue. I'll give you a simple example.
Mhm.
We work with a lot of like coaches and agency owners, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to grow my business because I'm going to have a delivery issue. I'm going to have a delivery issue, and I won't be able to deliver, and I won't have enough capacity. I'm like, brother, you can't even get leads, and you're talking about what life is going to be like at 100K a month, and you can't even get people in the door. So you don't even know how hard it is when you're gonna start, and then you're gonna be at 40K a month, and you're gonna have a ton of clients, and you won't be able to handle them, and you're trying to get more clients in the door. So it's like, don't try to worry about what life is gonna be at when you're at your next milestone, when you can't even get through your current thing. That's a very, very big issue people have, by the way, because they use the challenges at a next milestone for where they are right now. You know what that's kind of like? It's kind of like being at base camp in Everest and saying,
Yeah.
the summit's going to be, there's going to be no oxygen. So I'm just going to use my oxygen in base camp right now. It's like, what the we can all like align that that's not a good idea. So I often see that, number one. The other thing then is about understanding, okay, when you do have a challenge in your business, e.g., you can't grow it, you can't scale it, where does the problem lie? And I am very, very, very clear on this. Everything goes back to three core pillars as you're scaling. It's leads, sales, and delivery. And there will never, ever, 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 ever be anything else. So the way I think about this is, if you're trying to, the way I look at it is like, let's go top down. How many calls are you booking? I'm booking 0. Okay, you have a leads issue. How many
Mhm.
calls are you booking? I'm booking 20 a week, but they're not closing. You have a sales issue. And it's how many calls are you booking? I'm booking all these calls, I'm closing them, but I can't deliver on them. Okay, cool, we have a delivery issue. And then I just tried to look at specifically where is that constraint and how do we solve it. So
Mhm.
for us right now, we've hit up to $550,000 in a month, with like 30,000 followers, right? So it's been a pretty wild journey. But for us, it's about like, how do we get more on the front end, because our back end super scalable. We have a very good consulting business. We get really good results, and we get results at scale as well, which, by the way, most coaching businesses never ever do. So for us, I'm just going to give you a personal example. It could be like leads, right? And what's interesting is I was speaking to one of our clients today. They have 1.4 million followers, bear in mind, and they have the same
Mhm.
constraint that we have, which is all businesses need more leads in the end. So what that means is, for us, we're running paid, we're running organic, we're kind of doing the whole 9 yards. It will always, always come down to lead flow, because we build sales teams first and we teach people sales first. But once you understand like the game of sales, let me give you an analogy. Well, not an analogy. Let me give you a practical example. If you're running sales calls and you're closing 30%, to go from 30 to 40 is possible. It will probably take you like 6 months of training. And it would probably increase your revenue, yeah, quite a bit. But you could you could just increase your lead flow by 10x. And if you brought in 10x more leads and you still close at 30%, you would still make an extra two, three, four, $500,000 in a month. And I think about it through that lens versus, oh, like where do I feel like the issue is? I want to like actually look at the actual issue in the business and then fix it from there.
Yeah, that's cool. And not necessarily to push back, when you say like the three constraints tend to be like marketing, sales, and fulfillment, would
Mhm.
you say people is like how I envision it is like there's a block here, marketing, sales, fulfillment, and then
Mhm.
there's people. So what do you say
Agreed.
for your like framework and stuff? Would you say people are in each and every category, or like they're like everything for one? And do you consider that a constraint?
100%. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like we scaled our team to 35 team members. And then I had to get rid of a lot of people that were like B
Hmm.
players. So what you'll find is that an A player is worth their weight in gold. A B player will moan, complain until they leave. And
Hmm.
that is a hard pill to swallow. And it's also a hard thing to identify and to figure out
Yeah.
and to solve. So what that means is you need to always be hiring. So we have this concept called a hiring engine. So we help our
Hmm.
clients basically build a engine to have talent constantly coming in. And the way I think about this is two things. People are in abundance. There's people everywhere. But talent is a scarce resource. And there's not enough talent to go around. And that means that you need to be on the ball 24/7. And let me give you an actual example. If you look at JP Morgan, JP Morgan have an investment analyst program. And let's just take like the New York office. Every year they might hire 200 investment analysts. But that same role will get 75 to 100,000 applications.
Hmm.
100,000 people apply. 200 get the roles. What does that mean? They're going to get the best investment analysts from Northeastern, from Yale, whatever universities is available. They'll get guys from overseas. They'll get some absolute cracked out dude from wherever who's going to fly all the way to New York to make it big. And if that is the standard for talent, then God help me if I'm running an online education business. Like you're screwed, bro. Like you're fully screwed. And I
Hmm.
see this over and over again because like I coach people on hiring. Like we help them hire, we place them, we do all this kind of jazz. And if you don't have this in place, you are so screwed. And I've seen this firsthand. Like you follow me on Instagram, you'll always see that I'm hiring for new people. I'm always looking for new reps.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for new editors. I'm like one of the only people I know that constantly hire from their Instagram. Like I don't know anyone that's doing that. Like even my friends who come to me looking for hires, they don't do that. And the reason being is because people like yourself, young, ambitious, smart. Like I know obviously you have a role, but you would be a great person like at our team, right? Because like you get the vibe, you get the mission, you get the idea, you get content. And it's like if you don't have that perpetual loop of talent, you are screwed. Like there's no two ways about
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. For me, it's all back to culture. And to touch on your hiring point, like I used to be in the high ticket sales space and no more transitioned into the marketing side. But like setters, they churn so quickly in most businesses,
Yeah.
and they're like the lowest part of the role. And I used to be part of them. So like
What
whenever I
foot
get someone cold
soldiers.
calling me or setting me, it's like I'm all set. I'm not interested in being sold to, but one time, real quick, funny story short, is there's a guy who called me. It was like something like a Snowflake equivalent, if you're familiar with the software. And he was pitching me, and he just did not how to sell properly. Like he was
Mm.
stuttering, all that stuff. I know it wasn't purposeful stuttering. It was like I just don't know what I'm doing, stuttering. So when it came to him, I ended the call. You don't want to typically do this, but you you don't want the prospect to be controlling the conversation. You want you to be controlling the conversation. So
Mm.
when I jumped in, like I won the call, even though I was the prospect and being sold to. So I gave him like, hey, restart the call, do this, and then like here are the three things I would change it, do it again. It's like very similar to like what Andy Elliott does with the car dealership is like he gives them feedback. It's
Yeah.
like that's me being a little bit egotistical here, but it's free value. So when
Mm,
it comes to culture, that's really, really important. And I love your phrase of like always be hiring. It's very similar to mine. It's the
mm,
exact words. So when it comes to culture, there's people like in the door, but there's also those hard conversations that you must have. So
mm.
what's your structure to having those hard conversations? And then what do you try to do that specifically ends that negative behavior for and replace it with a new one?
You mean with the team member?
Just a team member, yes.
So take a step back. Culture comes from the top down. So you have to
Hmm.
do it for yourself before you do it for anybody else. It's 8 o'clock at night. I'm the only person in this office. Right? It's like
Yeah.
if you want to see someone actually like walk the 9 yards of like doing what they're doing, is like just come spend a day with me in the office, right? It's like
Hmm.
this is literally the reality. And if I can set that bar up here, that when I message someone saying, "Hey, we need these graphics, I need this brand pack on a Saturday afternoon," are they going to do it or not going to do it? They're going to do it. Secondly, you set the standard so that people start to imitate. When you're a kid, I think it's like 80% of your behavior is
Yep.
imitated of your parents. And then when you're an adult, it's like 40. So because of that, people come and work with you. So we have an office, people come and they stay in the office and they come with us. The recommendation from all the team is if you're in Voix, get in the office, right? And it was funny, one of my team members said it to me earlier. It's like I set the expectation that you can come here, but the expectation is you should be here. It's like why not?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
still to this day, it's like why not? So
Hmm.
I set that kind of expectation in the beginning because we are helping people, we're teaching people, our team members, and we're putting them on a career trajectory. That's the first thing. The second thing then is if they don't follow the plan, right? If they're not following the plan, then what is the plan that they're following? So everyone needs very clear targets, KPIs, ramp up, process, and everything. And if we haven't given you that, then we have failed. And in many instances, like over the years, like we have needed to make improvements to make sure that it was sweeter, more dialed in, more effective. And then I think it just comes down to the position of like, if there is an issue with a specific individual, you have to voice the issue early and you have to tie it to one, their personal goals, which
Hmm.
everyone needs to really kind of focus more into, and then two, the business goals. So the typical example
Yeah.
is with sales, right? It's like, why the hell do you get into sales? To make money. So if you're not
Hmm.
making money because you're doing a job, the easiest path is to tie that to is specifically what they're doing right now and why are they doing it and all the issues. But then we also want to understand, okay, from a business perspective, this needs to be done in this way. If it's not done in this way, unfortunately, we're gonna have to part ways. And
Hmm.
I'm just very, very clear with that. Like over the years, I've had to make some very, very, very difficult calls. Um, yeah, and look, I'll be probably a bit more rootless with this, which is business. Right?
Hmm.
It's like we're here to make money. And more specifically, we're here to create profit.
Hmm.
Especially as a business that has a business consulting business that helps other businesses make money.
Yeah.
So there's no free lunch, there's no charity, right? If you're running some like health offer and you're there like, helping people improve like whatever, their breath work, it's like fair enough. You may not be trying to push that to the nth degree. But when it comes to like a
Hmm.
consulting business, you need to have standards up here. So I've made like very big firing decisions. And if I'm ever questioned on it, I always just say they didn't hit targets. So what other job can you not hit targets, not hit KPIs, not hit milestones, and keep your job? Dude,
Hmm.
if you're cleaning toilets and there's 8 toilets to clean and you only clean one, do you think you're going to keep that job? Of course you're going to fire it. So I just like to base in reality, like proper
Hmm.
reality. Clear targets, clear expectations. You're either doing it or you're not. If you're not doing it, are you going to do it? If you're not going to do it, then get out. And
Yeah.
look, I say all this because like you're a young guy, right? And you're smart. You're very, very smart, and you have your head screwed on. As you get older, you will think that people will develop at the speed that you're developing. That was my biggest mistake. Actually, I have lots of
Hmm.
stories on that I can share, like personal stories and professional stories.
Yeah.
And when we were like when we are pushing the business super super hard, you just think that people around you are also elevating. So whether that's friends, family, team members, and then when they're not, you have to know to step in to be like, okay, is this person going to do it, or do they need to be let go?
Hmm.
And having that level of clinical behavior will allow you to make more money, will allow you to grow your business, will allow you to live a better life as well. And that's a big thing that I have discovered as well. And without going on too much tangents, like you're obviously super talented at what you do. There will come a day where you'll have your own business that you're going to be growing, and you have to remember that it's you. Like you're the one that grew it, you're the one that built it, you're the one that put the time and put the energy, put the money, put everything into it. And the hardest thing, without a doubt, is the business that you build. No one will ever remember how hard it was, and no one will ever remember the feeling of the pain that you went through for them to have leads,
Hmm.
clients, marketing material, all that kind of jazz. Like I remember having 32 leads in the CRM, living in Singapore. I knew everyone's name, everyone's birthday. I knew everyone's tax season. I knew the offer I was giving them. I would scan it 8 times a day, and I was on the ball.
Hmm.
And then many years later, you'll have sales reps, you'll have team members that say, "Hey, the leads are," and you're getting them like 2,000 leads on a webinar or something like this, right? So it's interesting, man. It's all interlinked, right?
Yeah. I appreciate the advice, and I resonate with that 100%, especially when it comes to increasing the quality of your environment. So,
Mm,
for instance, I know you mentioned Yale for a random nuanced example. I was there for a summer business program, and when it came to that, I was expecting more business-minded kids,
mm,
and I was proven wrong. So when it came to that, like I could present, and we had people for like we had a presentation that we had to do, a sales presentation. So me being a sales guy and a marketing guy, I knew what I was doing, and I could speak confidently, no filler words, all that fun stuff. So when it came to increasing the network, one of the best ways I do it is I'd rather be behind than get everything stuff done. So it purposely pushes myself to overperform, like overperform when it comes to that sense. So
mm,
for instance, when it comes to this podcast, each and every time I want to have a higher level guest than before.
mm, mm.
So, for instance, if you're familiar with Dan Martell,
Yeah.
one I know, and of course you've interviewed him before just recently. His creative director, Sam Gaudet, is what I heard amazing, and he's fantastic. There's another company as well. I think I forget his name, but he's the face of One of Ten, the thumbnail
Mm,
podcast. If you're familiar
mhm,
with them, and a
mhm.
few other guests as well. But I already have like interviewed a lot of crazy people, like for instance Jay Samit, and he's raised hundreds of millions of dollars, best-selling author, and
Sick.
let's say like worked a lot when it comes to content. So just to take a step back when it comes to everything, you
Mm,
started with a podcast. So when it
mm,
comes to you having a podcast, you have the guests, like the excellent questions, the great questions. When it
mm.
comes to that, was there ever a guest that you really wanted to have on but couldn't get? And then what did you learn from that?
To not get the guest, and I still don't have the guest. You mean?
Yes.
Hmm. I don't think things. I don't take things personally. Like I have a really good ability to turn my brain off when I need to.
Hmm.
Like if I face the rejection of not getting a guest, I just kind of get on with it a small bit. I know that's probably not the right best answer, but I'm saying one of my superpowers is being able to run at a wall really hard, get smashed in the face, and get up and do it again. It's always been like a superpower of
Mhm.
mine because I don't have attachment to and like even like I've interviewed like all the greats like you mentioned, but I'm not attached to it.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
really, really, really focused on the future. Like I'm really, really focused on as you mentioned, getting better guests, growing the brand, building the business, exiting the business. Like I'm super, super, super fixated on that,
Mhm.
and it's like my desire every day. That's what I'm more interested in. When it comes to the podcast, for me, I guess in the beginning I was more of a creator, but then because very similar to you, man, like very, very similar to you, because I just learned a ton of stuff to do with content. I became the content guy. Like you would have seen from like 2022, 2023, the content agency was our main gig back then before we were consulting.
Yeah.
And people were like, this guy, he knows podcasts inside and out, which I do. Like I have a deep understanding of the game. And that was easy to sell as an offer. But then I wanted to expand and not just be the content guy. And I remember I had a conversation with Iman about 2 years ago, but 2 years ago. And he was just like, basically, you have a choice, right? You can either be this creator guy like Chris Williamson and just try be the creator and talk about, gender dynamics and all this kind of or you can actually be a business owner. And at that point, we were already making, I think we were making like 250K a month. And I was like, well, this is obviously pretty obvious decision. And then that's when like a lot of our brand really stepped up at that point because it was like, we're not just the kids anymore. So that's why, and I'm saying all this because in the context of my podcast for now, my podcast is purely a relationship thing. I had a great podcast at the weekend with a bunch of people that super successful guys. And it's a great way for me to branch into my podcast and branch into new networks, basically.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this as well. So when
Mm.
it comes to the podcast's guests, like once the podcast is done, recorded, uploaded, etc., what's your like how do you stay in contact with those past podcast guests and like what does that
Mm.
actually look like in practice?
Good question. I think for me now, a lot of it is like social. So a few things like one, I could end up working with the guests. Like, that's not my intention, but a lot of times we end up working in different capacities, whether like I could be consulting with them or I might go to their mastermind or whatnot. Um, like if you see a lot of our client bases now, like a lot of these people were actually, guests at some point. And
Mhm.
kind of the conversation we're having now, it's like, okay, like how can I add value to your life? How can you add value to my life? Vice versa. Um, and we kind of build that relationship. Now, what I would say is, unlike your friends from your hometown, someone who's in your network doesn't need to be nurtured and cared for every 2 seconds. So the best thing that you can do right now is go out to the world and get real results. Because I had a podcast with Serge Guattari like last week. Serge is an absolute G, and I hadn't spoken to Serge in like 3 years. And I get on a call and I'm like, dude, like super. And I said to him, I'm like, I'm super impressed with everything you're doing. He's building like a new AI platform. And then he was like, man, like, I'm really impressed with what you're doing. He's like, I followed everything for the past 3 years. And then I was like, yeah, like, let's try and meet during the summer. And we will try and meet during the summer. And it's like, that is actually what like an actual relationship is because we're both interested in the same. We both support each other, like actually professionally. Whenever I see his stuff, I'm always super impressed and I'm super, like, I'm very grateful to be in his network because he's a G. He's such a cool dude. Um, and vice versa. Hopefully I can bring a lot of value to his life. So whether it's my podcast or whether it's whatever, and whether even like think about this, right? If you have nothing right now, and we all in many ways have nothing because everything that we have can be taken away from us. How can you bring value to somebody's life? That's it. So what I did in the beginning, and this is some kind of like secret sauce for you, is like I would message people being like, hey, like I'll do it all. I'll record the podcast, I'll upload it, I'll give you clips, I'll use my team to give you a ton of content, all this kind of. So for someone who doesn't have that, they're super, super grateful. And now, many years later, with a bunch of different businesses and software companies and stuff, I can just say, hey, dude, like, how else can I bring help to your life? And they're like, man,
Mm.
like, I really need sales reps. And I'm like, dude, did you know I play sales reps? Let's have a conversation. And it's about being useful to people because most people are useless,
Yeah.
and most people are what's the word? Like they're personal driven, you know?
Mm.
Like a lot of my team members like would go far for me, right? Would commit the time, commit the energy, put the time in. And because of that, we have a great team, and we work really closely together.
Yeah, relationships are 100% the way to go. So just to quickly wrap up here,
No worries,
two
man.
last questions. Is there anything that you'd like to cover that has not been said yet?
That's a good point. I think for you, like my advice to you is like coming out of school, you should just back yourself now. Is like if I have any regrets, is like I just actually wasted a ton of time not backing myself, which meant like I went to a 9 to 5, like I did. To be fair, my degree actually became incredibly useful now because obviously I have a software company, like I have an engineering degree, well, a hybrid of engineering. But from like a professional capacity, you may as well just go all in because you at 19, me at 30, there's like literally no difference. I'm actually not gonna lie. As in, like we're both we're both gonna end up with nothing at the end of the day, and we're both gonna end up in the same hole. So I think for you, like, they're not speaking on behalf of your parents, but it's like college, all that. You may as well just do something now. Like you're smart, you understand content. Doing something around that at a competitive price will just give you a huge advantage. So whether you're leveraging AI to implement that for people in their business with content, I know you have a lot of team pages. Whether you're using like I don't know, like AI team pages, AI ad creative, like you
Yeah.
could just slap with that. Like as in, it's just you could just kill and crush with that because you got to think about it. Like people my age, they're charging like 7K, 10K, 15K retainers, and it's like, dude, like you're probably living at home. Like you just don't need
Mhm.
you don't need to worry about that stuff. So
Yeah.
there's advantages. I say this to my clients a lot actually. We have two different types of clients. So we've got clients that are like young guns with all the energy in the world, with all life experience. But then we have people that are in their 70s that have like 50 years of like engineering experience, but can't turn on the computer. And
Mhm.
both these people have so much competitive advantage. If you're young, you can learn the thing. If you're old, you can turn on the computer. And I think for me personally, there are two best clients because they they have so much upside. And yeah, they have downside. But I feel like the challenge is the kind of people that are like stuck in the middle who are trying to like put a square peg through a circle hole, basically.
Yeah. For me, I've been super developing on what you kind of laid out, like college, no college, really being that introspective, but also not overthinking. So agree with you 100%. Appreciate the advice around that. So I know this is your favorite question. I asked this to you before. What's one question you wish people would ask you but never do?
Mm. Mm. I think it's like, why do it at all? Like why the bother? You know what I mean? Like you're gonna like all of it is hard. And it's like whatever option you choose in life, whether you pick a 9 to 5 and you go down that path, that's super, super hard. Or whether you go down the other path and do what we're doing. But my favorite response to something like that, and I know I asked myself my own question, is rough roads end smooth, smooth roads end rough. And I've seen firsthand people who've taken the easy path, they've taken the easy job, and their life at the very end is a total calamity. But then I know people like myself who have, really, really struggled. and then their life is easy or easier, should I say? And not everything it ties back to dollars and cents,
Mm.
but I have spent a lot of my 20s. My earlier part of my 20s was obviously a bit of a show, like partying, but the latter part of my 20s, no, I became a millionaire at 27. And then I became a liquid millionaire at 28, and had generated multiple seven figures by 29 or by
Mm.
28, by 28. And now I'm 30. So there is a lot of leverage that comes with doing the work. And as I say, rough roads and smooth roads and rough.
Yeah, it goes back to it's an infinite game, but it's a finite game as well.
And
That's
it's,
it
and
for
it's also a
yeah, go ahead.
competitive game. It's also a competitive game,
Yeah.
and back in the day, as in 2 years ago, you were competing with somebody else, right? So whether it was like, my competition, right? Like I'm competing with them, but now you're actually competing with AI, right? So you have humans plus the robots. So that's why the
Mm.
game has gotten like a
Way
billion
more
times
competitive.
harder. Yeah, it's just billion times harder. It's also the opportunity to, like, I need to find more time. I need to find more hours in the day. But like, we're building lots of AI products. I have an AI software company for sales, bear in mind.
Mm.
Yeah, so there is an opportunity. There's also the challenge with that too, but there's lots of positives as well.
That's great. All right, that's a great note to leave off of. Thank you, Darren Lee, for joining today's podcast. And
You're a
that's it
legend.
for today's conversation.